Oh, we take you live now to Hamilton, where NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh is making a campaign stop. Let's listen in.
On va aider disproportionnellement la classe moyenne. Parce qu'on pense que ça, c'est les gens qui ont besoin d'aide.
We think those are the people who need the help.
On va enlever la TPS.
Secondly, we're going to remove the GST permanently
Facture mensuelle.
From things such as your monthly bills and other essentials. This includes food, prepared meals at the grocery store, no GST. And also no GST on your cell phone bills, internet, and home heating bills. And finally, we know that with the uncertainty of this trade war, we know that this means that there is inflation and price increases. For those who are most vulnerable, this can have a very difficult impact. So we're going to be doubling benefits for seniors and those with disabilities. This will help people out. This will help bring seniors out of poverty, and it's a way that we can really help the middle class and the average Canadian. On the contrary, in the Liberals' plan, Mark Carney's plan is going to help millionaires more than the middle class. Same thing with Pierre Poilievre. His plan will also help millionaires more than the middle class, and I think that's the wrong thing to do.
Just closing up, I want to point out something. We learned recently that Mark Carney was personally responsible for two funds. He's the chair of Brookfield Investments, but he's personally responsible for two funds totaling $25 billion. And while he was chair, he chose to register those two funds, even though they're Canadian, he chose to register them in Bermuda for the sole reason of avoiding paying taxes. Right now it's tax season. Hardworking Canadians are paying their taxes. They can't choose to register in Bermuda to avoid paying taxes. They got to pay them here. And they do that because they believe that we contribute to our healthcare system. We contribute to taking care of each other. When we pay our taxes, we're paying into a program that lifts each other up. Well, Mark Carney was not just the chair of this entire company, but personally responsible for these two funds. He chose to register in another country to avoid paying those taxes. That's less money for healthcare, less money for seniors. That's less investments in our country. And so now, just a couple months later, he wants to be prime minister. A couple months ago, he was avoiding paying taxes in our country, and now he wants to be prime minister. It makes me wonder, is he going to be working for families, for people like Michelle, or is he going to continue to favor the companies that he worked for, like Brookfield? Is he going to allow them to get away with skirting, paying their fair share? Allow them to continue to register in other countries so that they don't pay their fair share? Will he favor those companies, or will he stand up for Canadians? I think these are fair questions, and I think it disturbs me, and I'm sure Canadians are going to hear that and be disturbed as well. Donc finalement, je veux dire que dans ce temps,
I'd like to say that in these times, we're paying taxes. We know it's important to pay those taxes because we need to contribute to the common good. We're contributing to our healthcare system and pensions because we need to take care of one another. But we've just learned that Mark Carney was responsible for two funds totaling a value of more than $25 billion when he was chair of Brookfield Investments. He decided to register those two funds in another country, in Bermuda, to avoid paying taxes in Canada. He was the chair of that company just a few months ago, and now he is a candidate for prime minister. In fact, he is right now the prime minister. And I think that raises questions. Is he going to continue to favor large corporations like the one that he was the chair of a few months ago, or is he really going to help people? I think this is a question that is concerning. I'm worried, and I think that Canadians will be worried too.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. We'll take the question from the press, one question and one follow-up by each Reporter. On va prendre les questions de la presse, une question et une question de suivi. On va commencer avec Juliane Lapointe, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh.
Let's start with Radio Canada. Good morning, Mr. Singh. On what you just mentioned, in light of what we learned from my colleague Danielle LeBlanc today, what do you think Mark Carney should do? What concrete action must he take? I think that what his record shows, and we're seeing more and more proof of it, it shows that he is defending the interests of the ultra-rich. And that's the question that I raised at the beginning. I think we're seeing more and more information coming up that demonstrates that. The fact that he profited from the housing crisis, and it was an explicit strategy of his company to find affordable housing, buy that housing, and then drive up the prices. And basically that was to take advantage of people who work hard. And I think that shows his priorities. Is he really there for you? Or is he there to protect the profits of large corporations? And that's new information. And just a few months ago, he was the chair of that company, and he was personally responsible for those two funds. And he explicitly chose to register those funds in another country to avoid paying taxes. That's not good leadership. That's not someone who's putting Canada's interests first, because we know that taxes contribute to our healthcare system, pensions, and the services we need. So he decided to avoid contributing, despite the fact that it's a Canadian company. All of this shows that he is not there for you. And I'm here to tell you that I am here for you.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing again and again is just more examples of Mark Carney showing Canadians that he's not in it for you. Like, he was the head of a company that profited off of the backs of Canadians during the housing crisis. And that was a strategic decision of his entire company, to find affordable buildings where hardworking people were paying affordable rent, to buy those buildings and jack up the rent, to make profits off the backs of people. And now we've learned that he was personally responsible for two funds totaling a significant amount of money that on purposely set up and registered in another country to avoid paying taxes. And I think all this questions who he's in it for. Is he really in it for you, or is he in it for the super rich? And I think there's more and more proof showing us that he's not in it for you, that he's in it for the folks that he worked for before, the company that he worked for before, not for you.
Vous n'avez pas dit ce que vous allez faire concrètement, mais mes collègues vont se
But
faire
you
un
didn't
plaisir de vous
answer and
relancer
say what you'll
là-dessus.
do
Je
in
change de
concrete
sujet pour
terms.
vous demander
So, changing topic,
pourquoi vous avez été prudent
Mr.
sur la
Singh,
gaffe de Mark Carney
why
au Polytechnique. Est-ce que c'est
were
parce que vous croyez
you-
que c'est pas grave ce qu'il a fait, ce qu'il a dit?
why did you hold back on Mark Carney's mistake regarding the Polytechnique? Do you think it's not so seriously? Of course it's very serious. What was your question? Your team voluntarily decided not to comment on what Mark Carney said yesterday, that he made a mistake with the last name of Nathalie Provost, and that he made a mistake with the name of the Polytechnique. You voluntarily decided not to make a comment on that. Do you think that's because it's not very serious? No, I think it's very serious. What happened at the École Polytechnique is horrible. Everyone, all Canadians know the moment when it happened. It was one of the worst attacks targeting women. It was an attack on women. It's an example of the dangers of violence against women and girls. It's horrible. I'm the father of two daughters, and I know that we live in a world where there is violence against women and girls, and I will do everything that I can to guarantee that the future of my two daughters, whom I love and adore, and ensure they are not victims of violence. And the fact that the Prime Minister cannot remember the worst attack against women, and that he confuses events, it's clear the Polytechnique was an attack, a horrible massacre of women. And it is all of our responsibility that we always remember what happened and that we commit to doing whatever we can to stop this type of violence against women. And the fact that a candidate to prime minister is so disconnected from our country's history and the history of Quebec that he doesn't understand the difference between Polytechnique and Concordia demonstrates that he is someone who does not take violence against women seriously.
This is very serious. One of the most horrible attacks in the history of our country against women was the attack, the massacre of women at École Polytechnique. It's engraved in the memories of Canadians. And to mix that up with another school, I mean, this is something that people remember exactly where they were the moment they found out about this attack. And we have all a collective responsibility to fight back against violence against women. I'm a dad of 2 daughters. I want my daughters to grow up safe. I don't want them to be in any way victims of violence. And we all have a collective responsibility to fight back against violence, to make sure women and young girls are safe. And for a prime minister candidate to not remember or to mix up something as serious as that, this is the most serious attack and massacre of women in our history. It's something that everyone in Quebec knows about. And to mix them up shows that he's out of touch with Quebec and out of touch with the historic tragedies that have happened in our country.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Hi, Mr. Singh, Taria, Isri Global News. We're in Hamilton, nicknamed Steel Town, and it's arguably the city most affected by the tariffs that are currently in place. So why is there no policy announcement on tariff relief?
We've talked about that a number of times. We put forward our plan on how we would stand up for the hardworking people of the city. And in fact, because of our commitment to the steelworkers, we received the endorsement of the Steelworkers Union, representing the union and the workers the hardest impacted. We received their endorsement because we understand their plight. I've showed up to the picket lines with these workers. I've been shoulder to shoulder with them, and I've demanded what they've asked for in terms of supports. They've said we need a plan that gives workers relief, that helps workers out that are being impacted by the tariffs. I've been calling for that from day one. And I've actually criticized the Liberal government for not putting in place protections for those workers. They've said we've got nothing in place for us to be able to cover our bills. I was the first to come out and say workers need to be put first. Mark Carney, as Prime Minister, when he was Prime Minister before the election was called, had time to go to Europe, had time to meet the King, had time to put in a tax cut for millionaires, but didn't put in place protections for those steelworkers. I was critical of that. I called that out, and I said that repeatedly. I met with the steelworkers and did roundtables with them as soon as these tariffs were announced and while they were being implemented, to hear from them directly. And they said we need a plan to support our workers. And secondly, they said we need a plan to build Canadian by Canadian. And that's why I said we need a plan where if we build any infrastructure in this country, any buildings, any roads, any bridges, we use Canadian steel, 100% Canadian steel, and 100% Canadian workers to do that. That's a plan to build up an economy that's more resilient, and I've laid that forward. And then we need to diversify where we're selling, and so we're not just relying on the United States, and I've called for that as well. And that's why the steelworkers, who are the union that is the hardest hit, endorsed me and the New Democrats, because they know folks like Monique Taylor and I are the ones that have their back and will always have their back.
You've announced a plan to supplement GIS. Mr. Poilievre is also trying to sway seniors with a series of announcements today, including lower taxes and changes to RRSP contributions. So why is your plan for seniors more convincing than his?
Well, first of all, Pierre Poilievre has had to flip-flop on his increasing the pension age. When he was in cabinet and the Conservatives, increased the age of receiving pensions. They increased the age of retirement. They literally attacked seniors and said they have to work harder and work longer before they can retire. That's what they did when they were in power. And he promised to do it again. It's his plan to do it again, and now he's flip-flopping on it. And we know that that is a lie. He is going to attack seniors the way he did before, so he's now trying to make it sound like he's not going to do that. We know he's going to do that. Conservatives cut. They want to cut pensions. He promised, right when he became leader in 2022, he promised in a plan clearly that he would cut the contributions for pensions in EI everybody knows if you cut the contributions, you're cutting the benefit. How can you have the benefit without the contribution? So he wants to attack pensions. And now he's trying to make a play, say, oh no, I'm not going to do that. We know what he's going to do. He's told us what he's going to do, and he's done it before. So don't trust Pierre Poilievre when he says he's not going to come after your pensions. He will. He's promised to do so. He's done it before. He's going to do it again. What makes our plan better is, one, our plan helps seniors who need it most. His plan is a tax cut that will help anyone that earns even $1 million a year. Our focus on increasing the GIS goes after the fact that there are seniors living in poverty. We want to lift them out of poverty. We're going to help the seniors that need it most. Our tax plan helps middle-class families, families like Michelle's, people that actually need the help. We're hard-working Canadians need the help. Millionaires don't need help. And the plan of Pierre Poilievre will mostly help millionaires out. Our plan will mostly help out middle class. That's the difference.
Thank you. Next media.
Good morning, Mr. Singh. Rachel Ayala.
We've been listening to NDP leader Jagmeet Singh making a campaign stop in Hamilton.